You're probably still using GPT-5 or GPT 5.5.
And you've seen the headlines saying GPT 5.6 is a huge leap. So you're wondering the obvious thing. Is it actually worth switching? Or is this another marketing cycle dressed up as a breakthrough? Well, I spent the last 72 hours reading every OpenAI doc, launch page, and system card for GPT 5.6. And I found something OpenAI is not exactly putting on the front page. There's no architecture paper. At all. So in this video, I'm going to save you those hours and walk you through what GPT 5.6 actually is, what it's genuinely good at, where it still falls apart, and the exact playbook to get real results if you're using it today. We're doing this in minutes, no filler. First up, the thing that trips most people up on day one. GPT 5.6 is not a single model. It's a family of 3, and picking the wrong one is going to burn your API budget faster than anything else. What GPT 5.6 actually is. Here's the setup. When OpenAI says GPT 5.6, they're actually talking about 3 models under one umbrella. Sol is the flagship, the one that shows up when you just type GPT 5.6 into the API. Terra is the middle tier, roughly half the price of Sol, aimed at the balanced cost and capability sweet spot. And Luna is the budget option, built for high-volume, cost-sensitive workloads. All 3 share the same 1.05 million token context window and the same 128,000 max output tokens. All 3 support the same reasoning effort dial, from none all the way up to a new setting called max. But here's the part that catches people off guard. GPT 5.6 takes text and images as input, but it only outputs text. That's it. No native audio, no native video, no native image generation. So if you were hoping this was the everything model that replaces your whole creative stack, it's not. It's a reasoning and orchestration engine. And once you understand that framing, everything else about how to use it starts to make sense. What actually changed from GPT 5.5? Now, if you're expecting me to explain some fancy new transformer architecture, I can't. And that's not me being lazy. OpenAI has not published a parameter count, a mixture of experts diagram, or anything close to a peer-style technical paper for GPT 5.6. Anyone on YouTube telling you they know the internal architecture is guessing. So what did change? The upgrades are at the runtime and orchestration layer. And honestly, that's where the interesting story is. 4 things matter here. First, a new max reasoning effort. Think of it as giving Sol permission to sit and think for longer on the hard stuff. Second, the Responses API now supports standard and pro reasoning modes, with GPT 5.6 defaulting to medium if you don't specify. Third, in ChatGPT Work and Codex, OpenAI shipped ultra-style workflows that spawn sub-agents to break down bigger tasks. And fourth, this one's underrated, programmatic tool calling, where the model writes bounded JavaScript to orchestrate your tools inside a hosted runtime. Translation: this model is not designed to be a smarter chat window. It's designed to browse, search files, call tools, hold state, and actually finish multi-step work. That's the pivot. And that's why the benchmark story matters a lot more than usual, because it maps directly to that pivot. Benchmarks that actually matter. Okay, benchmarks. And I know, everyone glazes over when a creator starts reading numbers. So I'm only going to give you the ones that translate into something you can feel when you're using the model. All of these are OpenAI's own published numbers. Sol versus 5.5. Terminal bench 2.1. Command line agent work. Jumps from 85.6 to 88.8%. Browse comp. How well the model completes research on the open web. Goes from 84.4 to 90.4. OS World 2.0, which is basically the computer use benchmark. Jumps from 47.5 all the way to 62.6. That's a 15-point leap, which in benchmark world is enormous. GeneBench Pro. Genomics and quantitative biology. More than doubles. From 12.0 to 28.7. Exploit Bench, the cybersecurity long horizon exploit benchmark, jumps from 47.9 to 73.5. And GPQA Diamond, the academic reasoning gold standard, ticks up marginally from 93.6 to 94.6. Here's the pattern to notice. And this is the thing OpenAI is actually selling. The biggest gains all cluster in the same place. Coding, browsing, tool use, science, and long horizon persistence. The gains on short trivia-style questions are barely there because we hit that ceiling a while ago. GPT 5.6 is not smarter at answering, "What year did the Roman Empire fall?" It's dramatically better at actually finishing a job. But before you go tell your team GPT 5.6 is the undisputed #1 model on Earth, hold on. Independent public leaderboard snapshots put Seoul near the top of frontier models, but not universally first on every aggregate index. The honest description is clearly top tier, often state-of-the-art on applied workflows, but not magically unbeatable on every single benchmark someone can invent. Cost, context, and the latency truth. Here's where the money conversation gets interesting. Seoul is priced at $5 per million input tokens and $30 per million output. Terra cuts that in half, 2.50 in, 15 out. And Luna drops it all the way to $1 in and 6 out. OpenAI officially says Luna is the fastest and cheapest model in the family, and Terra is the balanced default for everyday serious work. But, and this is the part buried in the fine print, if your prompt goes over 272,000 input tokens, OpenAI charges you 2 times the input rate and 1.5 times the output rate for the entire request. So yes, the million token context is real. No, it is not free unlimited context. If you're building anything that regularly stuffs 500,000 tokens into a prompt, that pricing change is going to hit your bill hard, and you should absolutely be modeling it before you ship. Now, latency. OpenAI does not publish a single milliseconds per response number. What they do publish is this. GPT 5.6 Seoul came within 1 point of Claude Fable 5 on the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index, while finishing tasks in 61% less time, at roughly half the estimated cost. Kodo reports about 2 times lower median latency versus 5.5 on agentic code review. Rogo reports finishing tasks 28% faster with programmatic tool calling. Those are real signals, but they're workload dependent. Your actual latency depends on tier, reasoning effort, and how many tools are in the loop, where GPT 5.6 is actually most useful. So who is this actually for? Let me break it down by use case, because the answer changes depending on what you're building. If you're a coder, this is probably the strongest default OpenAI model in the API right now, especially when your workflow is requirement analysis, plus code generation, plus tool use in one loop. Debugging, PR review, spec to app generation, UI work, long-running agentic engineering, this is Sol's home turf. If you do research or business automation, GPT 5.6 is legitimately strong at producing memos, structured findings, spreadsheet logic, citations, and decision-ready outputs. This is the tier where it starts feeling less like a chatbot and more like a junior analyst that finishes the report. If you're in education, it works well as a source-grounded tutor, but only if you give it a learning objective, a difficulty level, and a clear output format. Without that scaffolding, you get generic advice. With it, you get an adaptive teaching engine. Now here's the part every creator watching this video needs to hear. For visual creative work, GPT 5.6 is best used as a creative director, not a generator. It turns your vague idea into a polished brief that you then feed into GPT Image 2 for images or Sora 2 for video. Same story for video and music workflows. GPT 5.6 is unreal for scripting, narration, shot lists, mood boards, editing notes, and production briefs. Just remember the ceiling. It does not itself generate music, video, or audio. It writes the plan. Specialized models execute it. So the real question isn't, is GPT 5.6 the best model? It's, am I structuring my workflow so GPT 5.6 is doing the reasoning and something else is doing the rendering? If yes, you're set up to win. If no, you're paying frontier prices for the wrong job. Case studies worth paying attention to. OpenAI's customer references this cycle are actually more interesting than usual. So let me pull out the ones that tell you something. Shopify says GPT 5.6 follows intent better than 5.5 in multi-stage coding workflows. Cisco says it holds up for long-running research and design tasks. Basis flagged better reasoning and sub-agent use for accounting workflows. Lovable, a big one, reports roughly 25% fewer steps and 35 to 48% fewer tool calls on app-building workflows. Model ML says GPT 5.6 is the first model they've seen consistently generate decks that are ready for real work, not just AI slop. Triple Whale says it was their best overall front-end model. Kodo reports roughly 3 times fewer tokens per pull request, and about 2 times lower median latency versus 5.5 on code review. And Rogo says programmatic tool calling helped them finish financial research tasks 28% faster with 24% fewer output tokens. Outside OpenAI's direct ecosystem, the community signal is also moving fast. OpenClaw now explicitly ships GPT 5.6 support in its current releases. There are public demo repos, including a browser-based action RPG built conversationally with Soul. And there are already community-curated repositories collecting prompt patterns, agent demos, and use cases. So if you're waiting for the ecosystem to catch up before you commit, it already is. The limitations nobody's shouting about. All right, pump the brakes for a second, because this is where the marketing cycle and the actual documentation diverge. OpenAI's own system card classifies all three GPT 5.6 models, Sol, Terra, and Luna, as high capability in both cybersecurity and biological or chemical risk under their preparedness framework. That's why they built a multi-layer safety stack for this launch. Model-level refusals, real-time monitoring, activation classifiers that watch internal activation patterns during inference and can literally pause streaming if harmful content is likely, and trust-based access controls for high-risk domains. That activation classifier piece is a genuinely new design pattern. Safety is moving from what the model said to what the model is about to say. And the system card explicitly says, the usual failure modes are still active design targets, not solved problems. Jailbreaks, prompt injection, hallucinations, mental health responses, disallowed content. OpenAI estimates GPT 5.6 Sol will produce roughly the same overall rate of disallowed content violations as 5.5, with some categories going up slightly and others going down. Then there's the rollout friction, and this part is real. Early GitHub reports mention Codex model picker bugs, some product surfaces exposing lower than advertised effective context windows, Azure integration hiccups, ultra-style sessions running slower than expected, and confusing usage accounting, where people are burning through allowances faster than they thought. Those aren't official specs. Some will get fixed quickly, but if you're building production systems this week, treat GPT 5.6 as a live frontier release, not a settled platform. The playbook to actually get good results. All right, here's the practical part. The 6-step playbook based on OpenAI's own prompting guidance for 5.6. 1. Start with the smallest prompt that clearly defines success. OpenAI's own numbers show leaner system prompts improved internal coding agent eval scores by 10 to 15%, while cutting tokens by 41 to 66% and costs by 33 to 67%. Yes, really. Less prompt, better results. 2. Do not jump straight to max reasoning. Start at medium, test one level lower, and only escalate to high, X-high, or max if your evaluations show a real quality gain. Otherwise, you're paying for compute you don't need. 3. Define autonomy boundaries explicitly. GPT 5.6 is proactive and persistent, which is great until it does something you didn't want. Tell it what it can do without asking and where it has to stop for approval, especially for external rights, purchases, destructive actions, or scope expansion. 4. Keep your tool stack clean. Only expose the tools relevant to the task. Redundant tools and vague descriptions actively hurt performance. 5. Use programmatic tool calling for bounded reduction jobs. Filtering, ranking, deduplication, batching. Not as the default for every workflow. It's a scalpel, not a hammer. 6. For creative pipelines, let GPT 5.6 plan and critique, then hand off to specialized generators for images, video, or speech. That handoff is where most people leave quality on the table. So, is GPT 5.6 worth caring about? Yeah, actually. Not because OpenAI's marketing team wrote a compelling launch page, but because the combination of long context, stronger tool use, real persistence, better visual and document judgment, and better performance per dollar makes it feel like an actual work engine instead of just a chat window. That's the shift. But, and I'm going to keep saying this until people stop pretending otherwise, don't mistake that for solved AI. There's still no public architecture paper. The model still needs grounding, review, and human approval on anything that matters. The rollout has real rough edges. And the safety classification is high enough that OpenAI itself built a whole new monitoring layer to ship it. Use it thoughtfully, and GPT 5.6 is one of the most practical frontier upgrades OpenAI has shipped in a long time. If this breakdown saved you the hours I put into reading every doc, subscribe. And drop your GPT 5.6 questions in the comments. Next week, I'm testing Sol against Fable 5 head-to-head on real creator workflows. And I want to know exactly which tasks you want me to run them through. See you then.